Hello and welcome to the 2025 Season 4 Week 3 Team Conti Sim Performance Track Guide. We're looking at the NASCAR NextGen car this week at the new configuration of the Charlotte Roval. Nick Ottinger has been nice enough to provide a lap for us, and I'll be going over what he did on his hot lap from in and out of the car. We'll take a deep dive into each corner, discuss what he's doing, why he's doing it, and why you should do it too. And ultimately, I think if everybody takes a little bit from this and learns a thing or two, you should have a pretty good week at the Roval. So without further ado, let's begin the lap from outside the car, break down each corner, and then hop in the car once we're done. So into turn one, this is a bit specific to the Roval versus really anywhere else we go, but definitely against running the oval here. You think about when you run the oval and your approach to turn one, the line is to cut the second part of the quad oval, so you cut some distance in lap time, and you set yourself up for turn one. The oval turn one as you get much closer. You get out to the wall, you make your entry down to the bottom. I think everybody knows what I'm talking about there. At the Roval, because we're not doing that and our turn one is much sooner, we have to actually wrap the outside wall, really follow it with our car to make sure that we are as efficient as possible in entry. We maximize our angle of attack into the apex curve, and it just gives us a lot more rotation versus straight lining this entry and shortcutting, or adding any additional space between the right side of our car and the outside wall. All of that to say, let's play this forward a little bit and let's follow along with what Nick is doing, and I think it'll make more sense. So coming down here in third gear, and we're going to stay in third, and you can see Nick is following the curve of the wall. He's not shortcutting it like we typically would do at this track if we were on the oval. He is following the wall, wrapping the wall fairly tight right up to it, and then once he gets past the one, he'll begin to turn in. So the braking begins just before the three, but 50% peak brake pressure there, slowly tapering off, turns in sharply past the one, and just clips the curb. You don't want to use the blue turtle, but the red and white is fine. Just clips the curb and then starts to throttle back up. Lots of big bumps that really affect the next gen car because of how stiff it is. So be careful with your throttle application off of one and on your approach into the short chute between one and two. In addition to the bumps, you've got an off camber situation here off of one where the track is going to feel like it's falling away from you. And as far as the behavior of the car, it's going to really feel like the car just wants to naturally move itself to the right and run into the wall and exit. So anything you can do back here to, one, extend your angle of attack, and two, create some rotation of the apex is going to go a long way in allowing you to throttle up sooner and harder without feeling like you're shoving the front into the outside wall off of one. This used to be the Tums Heartburn turn. I guess we ran out of sponsorship money and now it's just a wall, but it's still a heartburn turn in the sense that the sharpness of the apex, the off camber off of one paired with the bumps, it's just a super challenging and deceiving corner. So be careful for that. So turn one, go through here in third gear. And just lots of partial throttle in between one and two. No need to go full throttle in between one and two. And that goes for all the cars this week. Just partial throttle. Get yourself turned in so your left front is as close to this wall as you can get it without hitting it. Nick does a fantastic job there. And from here, you want to increase throttle to drive the car back to the right side of the track. Utilize the track space off of two, and you're going to start braking for your 3-4 complex right in about the middle of the track. Nick gets a bit farther left here than I typically do, which is fine, to each their own. But typically I'll carry a little bit more speed off of two. I'll carry the car farther out to the right, and then I will brake from right down the middle. Now, typically, pinching off your entry like that would really hurt your center, but as we play this forward into 3 and 4, I'll tell you why it really doesn't matter here, and if anything, it might be better to have a shallow entry. So into 3, still in third gear, but 40% initial brake pressure and quickly trailing off. The goal in 3 is to carry lots of speed and almost overshoot the speed so that the car naturally carries itself beyond the edge of the racing surface and onto the painted runoff. The painted runoff is fine. The tricky part about it is that it's a bit off camber as well, so you got to be careful to not overshoot it. But in using that runoff, as opposed to just getting out to the line and not going any farther, in using that runoff, you extend your angle of attack on your approach back down to 4, which allows you to carry more speed through the turn 4 apex, which betters your speed on your approach down the backstretch of the infield and into turn 5. So a straight, shallow entry here is not penalized because we're almost resetting our corner when we get to the middle anyway. And that straight, shallow entry sets us up well to have our car naturally track out to the paint. So in all, it works really well. It's the one time that I can think of where a shallow entry is good. I'll play it forward, and this is what I'm talking about. So into 3. He's already rolled off the brake, just trailing a smidge right here, just trying to manage the speed. Maybe a little throttle to drive it through. Nope, no throttle. And he's using a little bit of the runoff here, you can see. Now I think if Nick was full push right here, full commit, he would be out closer to where my mouse is, about halfway across this painted runoff. And in doing that, he'd be able to have a wider angle into 4, and he'd be able to get through there with just a touch more speed and front compliance. This is still good, though. What you don't want to do is stop your car. If you take my mouse, right? We don't want to stop here because then we're super pinched over here. Getting to the line is fine like he did. He's actually slightly over it. That's pretty good. What would be really good is if you just got a little bit farther to the left. It's hard to do that and be pinpoint exact with that every lap because we're talking a mile an hour plus or minus is really going to drive where this car tracks out to in the middle of 3 and 4. So overall, good right here. We can always be slightly better, and that's what I would say. To be a little better, just track out a bit farther. Still free rolling. He's going to introduce a little bit of brake again on the approach down to 4. Just a slight amount of brake lit up there. But then the key right here is going to be to start throttling up. Start throttling up before you get to the corner. Very easy to use too much throttle and push out wide and get in the grass. You don't want to do that. 50% throttle initially. Get up and over the curb and then fully commit. All of this track over here to the left of the blue line is good. Grass is bad, obviously, but you want to be as far to the left as possible. Off of 4. It's up in 4th gear right here. And you can see right to the turtle. And if we go on board, it's really going to look like he is on the turtle as he turns in, but he's just off of it. You do not want to hit that turtle. That'll kill your lap and your car. But you want to get as close as possible because as we go back outside the car here, it's just a quick lift, a touch of brake to encourage the nose to turn in, and then you are using all of the runoff off of 5 and then on the approach up and over the crest into 6. Now 4th through the apex of 5, followed by a quick downshift to 3rd. Be careful downshifting as you come up and over this hill because the rear is light. It has a tendency to hop the tires. Not nearly as bad as the truck and the Xfinity car, but you can still get some nasty oscillation even with the independent rear suspension. So down to 3rd. Trailing brake and just going over a lot of really nasty bumps. Bump, 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 bump all the way through here. Best way to combat those is to make sure you bleed off speed appropriately and get tight to this inner curbing in 6. Follow the curvature of the dashed line to the second half of it and then start to wrap this blue. A little bit of throttle here. Really good front turn, and he's going to wrap the blue all the way around using just enough throttle so that he doesn't track too far off of it. Down to 2nd. Where is it? 2nd, 1st. Only part of the track where we're using 1st gear is here. Big trail brake, hand over hand steering, and attack this apex. A little bit wide right here in a perfect lap. We'd be just getting to this curbing and just clipping it, but overall not bad. Now the key right here is to get the thing rotated, pointed, and straight as possible so we can begin to open up the wheel and increase throttle. It's an inverse relationship of wheel and throttle off of the hairpin. The more throttle you use, the less wheel you should have in the car. If you have too much wheel in the car and you accelerate too quickly, you're going to spin the rears and go nowhere and kill your speed through NASCAR 1 and 2. First gear, straighten it out, track out to the wall, to second, to third, to fourth, down to the bottom, to fifth. We're going to spot the braking zone. Just before the 7, we're going to brake. Big initial brake pressure to fourth gear, to third gear, tight to the wall. Just turning off between the 3 and the 2, to second gear. Now we're going to start using the turtles. So big turtles, we're going to use those on the way into the chicane. And we're just going to clip the red and white curbing through the second part of the chicane. You don't want to hit these turtles here. It's no good. Second gear still. Start partial throttling it out. Watch the bouncing. Partial throttle out to the trilogy wall off of the chicane. Cut this right here to just save yourself a little bit of distance. Up to fifth gear on the way into the front stretch chicane. Nick uses a very tight, disciplined line off the track and into the chicane. Really wraps this blue line tightly, doesn't really track off and then straighten it out, just wraps it. A very, very early lift. You can't really go as deep into the front stretch chicane as you can in the other two cars because this thing bounces super bad when you get off the banking. So an early lift well before the end of the blue and white line. Down to fourth. We're going to get off the track third. Second. As far over to the left as we can be without picking up a 1X. And then it's all going to be about positioning right here. Yank the car in. New this year, we've got these really flat blue turtles, so we can go straight over them. Don't cut any more than that, or else you'll receive a slowdown. Second gear through here, start partial throttling it. Probably don't want to use the big turtle on the way out in the NextGen. It's just too rough on the underbody. Put the power down, hook up the rears, and come across the line to run a 1:19.91. All right, so from inside the car, we'll play it through here, and I'll talk it through as it's going. A little different perspective here. Wrap the wall, third gear all the way through here. Trail off the brake, little clip of the curb, partial throttle. Get it turned in, get tight to the inside. Third gear all the way through here. Up and out of turn 4, third gear, fourth gear, little brake, turn in, partial throttle, up and over the crest, we're going to go down to third, tight to the blue and white, wrap it, straighten it out, second first. Get in as far as you can at the apex and straighten it out, track out to the wall, off of 7, through NASCAR 1 and 2 we go, up to fifth gear, run the bottom. Off of NASCAR 2, spot the 7 and brake. Fourth, third, second. Big turtle in, red and white on the way out, out to the trilogy wall and cut the approach back into NASCAR 3. Up to high gear through NASCAR 3 and 4. Early lift, fourth, third, second. Straight over the first curbs, just the red and white on the way out. And that completes the lap. One more time with me nice and quiet from inside the car. We'll appreciate what Nick's doing, and I'll be back in 1:20. right, and that completes the lap. So that is it's a pretty thorough deep dive into the NASCAR NextGen car here this week at the new Roval configuration. Tire wear will come into play, not so extreme as some of the other cars this week, but definitely keep an eye on the tires. I think track conditions are going to really swing whether or not tires become a factor or not. This cooler weather we have here for A Open probably going to limit some of the fall off. If NIS ends up going in another direction, a hotter direction, you're going to have more fall off, and of course vice versa, less track temp, less fall off. So just be mindful of that. It's going to be fluid throughout the week. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, Charlotte Roval's a really tough track for the most part. If you keep it on track and you keep it out of the walls, you're going to have a pretty good race. As you get into the higher splits, the more competent road racers, if you will, they're going to need to find that pace to really rack up those top fives. But if you're more of like a beginner to mid-level road racer and you're in the mid-level splits, first and foremost, just get around the track cleanly. And then from there, start to build up your confidence, build your pace, and slowly climb to where you feel like your ceiling is versus just going balls to the wall, throwing it in there and making a lot of mistakes. So limit mistakes, keep it on track, keep it out of the walls, and it should be a good week. Other than that, though, thank you everybody so much for watching and supporting the channel. We really appreciate that. Thank you to Nick Ottinger for lending his road course expertise this week and giving me a little bit of a road course reprieve. Greatly appreciate him. So on behalf of Nick and his killer lap and myself, thank you so much for watching. Have a great week at the Roval, and we'll see you next time at Las Vegas.